Welcome back to Retro Tech. Now, I recently got a question from a subscriber if I ever considered reviewing or covering vintage audio equipment on my channel. And the answer is yes. So today I've got a brand new video for you, and the piece of vintage electronics we're going to be looking at is this gigantic old school wood grain stereo audio amp. So let's go ahead now and take a closer look at it. So here we have our Onkyo TX-3000 stereo audio amplifier. Now this audio amp was manufactured in 1980, and we still have some great vinyl coated metal back here for the wood grain finish, and then a lot of the aesthetics that are really pleasing for an audio receiver from this time period. Now let's go ahead and take a look at some of the specs on this model. Here's a fast look at the specs. We'll come back to the important details later. Alright, so now we've got our volume knob over here, and then our selector for inputs. And we have this really high-end FM AM tuner knob, and this is one of the reasons people really desire these old school receivers. And here's more controls for our sound quality. We've got high filters as well as stereo and mono, a loudness selector, and a couple of other adjustment selectors here right next to our tuning knob. First thing I want you to see is our tuning knob. See how the tuning knob turns? It flows very nicely, and we've got our indicator here as to where our radio station is tuned into, or what frequency we're tuned into. So let's just take a look at the design of this turning knob internally real quick. Here's a closer look at the design diagram for the FM AM tuner. We've got some dials here up top to the left and the right. These actually indicate what kind of energy is flowing to our speakers at the moment. So when we have sound coming in, going out to some speakers, and as the song or whatever we're listening to plays, these will go back and forth to show that there's activity going to the left or right speaker. Here's the back of the receiver, and we've got a ground point right here, and then phono. This is generally for our older turntable devices. Some of them require an extra ground point, so that's where we can connect to if we want to use one. So you've got some inputs as well as outputs that you could connect a recording device to either input. Now above here we've got our antenna ends for AM and FM, but I want you to notice this arm that I just pulled down. That's actually a built-in antenna that does help you pick up some signals without having to add any additional antenna to begin with. Alright, and finally we have two inputs here. If we need to add power to another device, we can plug them into this or this plot. And then we've got just some speaker input connectors right here for a speaker A or speaker B. They both can be turned on either separately or simultaneous. And then there's a quick change for a fuse if you have a fuse problem. After we've taken a walk through around this unit, I'd like to go ahead and show you what's inside. Let's go ahead and turn off the unit and start to tear it apart. Here we've got two screws. Let's go ahead and remove these two on the side. There we go. Okay, so let's remove the screws from the second side. We've got two screws to worry about on the back to get the shell off. That's this one up top. And this is the second screw on the top to be removed, and it's the last screw we'll need to remove. A total of 6 in all. Now it's just time to slide this off. Okay, here's our look from above inside the amp. And just so you know, the shell is all metal. It just has a vinyl coating to look like wood grain. So let's go ahead and go over just some of the important parts here. First, we have the transformer, which is this large device over here to the left of the screen. That's very important for the power. Then we have the power supply circuit, which is all this stuff over here, and we've got these two very large capacitors. As we move over here to the other side of the amplifier, right in this middle portion are our power amplifiers, and a couple of those are attached to this giant heater radiator or piece of heat sink, and that just helps some of the temperature be spread out, and it doesn't get so hot in here if you're running this for a long time. Then everything on this side of the receiver is all the controls for the AM/FM tuner. Let's take a closer look at this tuner. As I turn the wheel, you can see that structure move, and then we've got movement along this piece of metal. This is a very high-tech piece of equipment here. Let me show you real quickly what the manufacturer says if you need to make an adjustment. So as you can see, there's a lot of equipment that you need to make a proper adjustment to your tuner. Most likely you won't have that equipment or access to a lot of it. It seems to be kind of rarer now. So what you need to know is, if you are considering buying one of these, make sure this tuner works relatively well as is, because you will not be able to make the proper adjustments to this, most likely due to the fact that you won't have all the equipment. This is a list of the tools required to make an adjustment. We've got one last look here. You can see where our input knobs come in, and that's all on the other side there. Now we've got a couple control boards that control those and some LED lights. And what to note about these is a lot of times these bulbs will be burnt out because they're actually old bulbs, little tiny incandescent bulbs, but you can transfer over and install LEDs in the place of them if you just get in here and strip away some wire and insert a new LED with a resistor. Let's go ahead and get set up for our demo today. We're going to install some speaker cable on these twist turns, and these just turn clockwise to tighten. Alright, we're set up and our demo's ready to go. First thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn up the volume a little bit so you can hear. And I want you to notice how nicely it just flows as you change the radio. And let's go ahead and zoom in now to the tuning device. Okay, so here's our tuning knob, and you can see as I go away from a radio station it moves, but once you get really close to dialed in, that'll get in the center there, and if we turn it up, you can see it gets tuned in there, and then you can get your station tuned in perfectly. One of the reasons people love these is because just their look. They just look fantastic, especially with these metal and all the knobs and dials. It's just a great look that really encapsulates some of the nostalgia from the 1970s and 80s. Next, I'd like to discuss a little bit on the performance of this amplifier. Now, we've got 45 watts per channel under normal load into 8 ohm speakers with no more than 0.04% total harmonic distortion. Okay, but what does that really mean? Well, total harmonic distortion is actually how distorted your audio quality will get the louder you turn it up. So on a model like this, that is an extremely low amount of distortion, which makes this unit still great for use today. Now, we do have a lower level of power coming into this at 45 watts, but that's not really going to affect our quality of sound. It's actually going to help us have the lower percentage on the THD. Now, if we compared this to a newer receiver today, that was about $200. Onkyo has one, but it comes with higher wattage, 100 watts, yet that THD percentage is 1%. So as you turn it up, it's going to become really distorted. Whereas with this unit, you can turn it up really loud and you will not have distortion. So that's one of the reasons this one still outperforms a lot of the receivers today. Now, one of the drawbacks is obviously the fact that this only has enough power to put 4 speakers out of it naturally. So you won't be able to do things like have 5.1 surround sound or the help of a bass subwoofer. Also, we're limited on the number and the type of inputs to put in this. It's pretty much just going to take older-fashioned audio connections. So lastly, I recommend picking these up. I got this one from Goodwill for $5. Now, it was a half-price day. It was normally $10, but I went and found it. It was $5. And most of the reasons that people will discard these is they've either upgraded to something new finally, or a lot of the lights that are light bulbs will just go out over time and no one knows how to replace them. So rather than replacing them, they figure it's time to just get rid of the whole machine. So in future episodes, we may take this apart and do some LED light swaps and some other repairs. But for today, that's just it for the overview. Please let me know what you think. Would you consider picking up an old amp like this? Also, I want to say a special thank you to anybody who's newly subscribed to the channel. Please feel free to comment on this and leave a like. I appreciate your time. Have a wonderful day.